Lesson 9. To enjoy glorious health is one of the most ardent of human aspirations. The health of an individual is the measure of his ability to live, to express himself in terms of power and achievement on this earth plane. It is worth more than riches, because it gives one unlimited opportunities for acquiring wealth, whereas all the money in the world cannot actually buy health. Health is the efficient outward manifestation through the body of harmonious inner activities. For this, a sound body is as essential to each individual as is a good instrument to a musician. A master violinist handicapped by a broken or ill-tuned instrument cannot give expression to the exquisite melody within him, because every note is shorn of its power, beauty, and attractiveness in passing through an imperfect channel. So with the physically unfit, no matter what the harmony within, it emerges only into distorted and jangled expression through the fluid channels for its transmission. As mankind is the sum of the individuals comprising it, the progress and vigor of the human race, as well as the relative progress and vigor of respective nations, depends directly on the degree to which every one of its people can manifest their inner qualities. A healthy member of society is able to serve society in proportion as he is able to manifest more qualities, thus constituting a positive force for its advancement. An unhealthy person is on the contrary a burden which society must carry and which retards it. The difference between the two marks the progress or retrogression of the people as a whole. Therefore, an equal responsibility rests on everyone to develop a healthy body, not only for their own sake, but also for the sake of their fellow beings. We have certain qualities which are there for expression, and we have the physical organs to give them that expression. If those physical organs are poorly developed, the greater part of the qualities they represent will never be brought out. Thus, not only does ill health result in a great loss to the individual in particular, but also to the world in general, which is prevented from benefiting by those qualities. In this connection, you may recall divers prominent figures who, in spite of all health and physical limitations, have been able to produce remarkable results in their lives, while others with every apparent physical advantage have accomplished nothing constructive at all. There are two explanations for this seeming paradox. The first and obvious one is that those who achieved much in spite of physical limitations could have done a great deal more if they had been in sound health, whereas those whose excellent physiques did not enable them to attain any special prominence would have been much worse off if they had not possessed at least that single asset. The second and more important one is the prevailing misconception of what health is. Most people are inclined to judge the health of an individual by the muscular development of his body, which is in fact a very specious indication. A man may be splendidly muscled and still in poor health, because the development of more important inner centers may not at all have kept pace with the growth of visible sinews. In that case, the magnificent body is an excrescence, a sort of huge wen growing out of a spindling core where all the centers except those controlling that exaggerated development are starved and shriveled almost to nothing. Real health is a condition which must pervade every fiber. The physical apparatus for the expression of one's qualities is like a lens or burning glass for focusing and transmitting the rays of the sun. If the lens is dirty or chipped and full of flaws, it will permit those rays to filter through only very imperfectly, so that their expression on the other side is blurred and dim and powerless. If it is crystal clear, it will concentrate the scattered rays into a one-pointed beam of such potency that the individual can say, with reason, "Watch my smoke," because in whatever direction he turns that beam, he is going to get action and results. The healthy body is the clear lens, that is, not only polished on the outside, but free from dirt and faults and bubbles on the inside also. Such a body does not need to be hardily muscled. All it needs is to be clean and evenly developed throughout. Just as limpid water can be made to focus the sun's rays as effectively as a burning glass, so also can healthy tissues be made to correlate their activities and produce as good results by simply keeping them clean and wholesome. The keystone of health, therefore, is a balanced development, or poise. A normal individual with all his physical faculties equally developed, inside and out, is able to bring into play more power than one who has a few developed at the expense of the rest. Unbalanced powers neutralize one another, whereas balanced powers fortify each other. Observations made on criminals have revealed that their bad characteristics are very often the consequences of just such a lack of poise brought about by physical defects, especially in the brain. Once those defects are corrected, usually by an operation, the whole character of the individual is changed. Physical culture has taken elaborate pains to evolve methods for promoting the general health of the body. Most of these are scientifically worked out and bring excellent results if followed faithfully, but they are limited by the very principle on which they operate and the artificial aids required. Any scheme of physical exercises proceeds on the actual theory, though probably unformulated, that by making a muscle work harder, the center controlling that muscle is naturally obliged to develop in order to supply the increased energy demanded of it. In other words, such a scheme tries to control causes by manipulating effects. Therefore, it is circumscribed in the number of hidden causes it is able directly to influence by the number of visible effects it is able to handle. And while those centers which are not touched nevertheless benefit sympathetically with the improved condition of the part of the body, they are not actually developed in harmony with the others. Thus the equilibrium is only partially restored, and in cases where the exercises are not wisely chosen is apt to be even more disturbed rather than corrected. Added disadvantages reside in the fact that most of these exercises depend upon mechanical devices or special surroundings for their proper performance. Many of them, particularly games, are a part of outdoor life and require the cooperation of others. Yet to a great number of individuals, neither specialized apparatus nor outdoor life and companionship are available, so they cannot benefit as do the more fortunate ones. But for those who know how to use universal life energy, no such limitations of environment exist, because wherever they are, that power is there also, waiting only to have the way opened for it to enter. The ultimate purpose of both physical exercises and the methods taught you in this course is the same, that is, to develop a healthy and efficient body. But they go about it from diametrically opposite points of view. Physical exercises works from the surface inward towards centralized causes by as many channels as it is able to find, just as one might try to clean a clogged shower bath by squirting water back through each hole separately. Universal life energy works from the centralized causes outward into surface effects, a single stream spurting under equal pressure through each separate hole or channel and driving the accumulated dirt of sickness and ill health before it. The most direct reversal of this natural process is to be found in the use of drugs and medicine, that last recourse of failing health. Although the basis of all such artificial stimulants is, after all, universal life energy, since every material thing is composed of that force in different degrees of condensation, their use should nevertheless be avoided as far as possible, and then resorted to very carefully under adequate medical supervision. To obtain universal life energy through your own physical channel, contacting that inexhaustible supply in its pure aspect of life force, is one thing, whereas obtaining it in a corrupted form out of a bottle is another. In the former case, you develop your own inner organs for drawing in as much as you need, in quantities automatically adjusted by the requirements, and you rely solely on yourself. In the latter, you not only depend more and more on a box of pills or a vial whose contents are administered through unnatural channels in quantities determined by a seldom infallible human judgment, But by introducing a supply of energy artificially, you deprive the center in your brain on which you ought to rely of its function, so that it sinks into disuse. Universal life energy in its pure form contains the antidote for every ailment, and through its inherent power of harmonization will establish equilibrium and health by eliminating disharmony and disease wherever and however found. The way to treat yourself for any physical trouble is as follows. Make the contact with universal life energy after seating yourself comfortably in a chair. If you are too ill to sit, lie down. When you feel the force flowing through you, place your hand on that part of your body which is troubling you. Universal life energy will then flow in a healing current through your hand into the diseased part. There it will by and by eliminate the trouble by throwing it off, and will restore the natural condition of equilibrium. If there is inflammation due to congestion, life energy will dispel that congestion and the inflammation will disappear. Remember that most of human troubles are due to local or general congestion of the body. Therefore, its elimination is one of the most important points in therapeutics. If there are diseased or dead tissues, as in so many so-called organic troubles, life energy will restore the diseased cells to their normal activities. Those which are dead will be thrown off by the living ones which will replace them, and the affected part will then assume once more its full share of the work of the body. In its aspect of protector against deadly microbes and the germs of contagious diseases, universal life energy plays the same role in the body as ammunition and supplies play in the work of an army. Each cell of your body is a tiny soldier on guard over his own minute sector of the line, and universal life energy, flooding along the nerve pathways, seeping into every blood corpuscle, stimulating and strengthening everything it touches, carries to every individual fighting cell of those massed millions the power to repel the attacks of an enemy much more subtle and persistent than any human foe could be. That force is the ammunition whereby those soldiers' cells preserve an unbroken front, as well as the food which sustains them during that endless battle. And it produces a radiation of positive life current from the body so strong that negative assaulting units explode and destroy themselves on contact with it, just like toy balloons which float within range of a bonfire. That is why a genuinely healthy individual, one whose inner supply depots and lines of communication are well organized, can go through epidemics and can associate intimately with people suffering from contagious diseases without being affected in any way by them. Its distinctive quality of self-government makes the use of universal life energy so simple and practical that anyone, even a child, can get equally effective results from it. No special knowledge of anatomy or of the disease itself is required, and no misuse is possible, because the unvarying tendency of that force always to seek and find equilibrium is stronger than any human will to direct or change it. If you have that special knowledge, so much the better, as you will then understand exactly how the power you use is operating. But whether you know or not, it will operate just the same, flying directly to its need, filling the diseased part of your body as rain spills into the hollows in the ground, in precisely the right quantities and carrying just the right antidote, bringing its own peculiar quality of basic harmony to replace the disharmony it expels. When treating others, the method of using universal life energy is slightly different from self-treatments. Have your patient, if possible, comfortably seated in a chair and perfectly relaxed. The patient does not need to make the contact with universal life energy. You are to do that. Take good care to make the contact before you touch or even approach the patient, as otherwise he will, because of his exhausted condition, draw out of you instantaneously your own reserve of life energy stored in your solar plexus and will leave you in your turn exhausted. In that condition, it will be more difficult for you to make the contact than if you are in your ordinary physical shape. After you make the contact, Place your two hands on the shoulders of your patient from behind in such a way that your thumbs, touching each other, rest on the seventh vertebra, which is most easily identified as the lower joint of the neck. This is the most sensitive point in the spinal column from which your spinal cord, and consequently the whole of your nervous system, can be influenced. Your other fingers and the palms of your hands are to rest on the shoulders of your patient, the fingertips directed downward over the breastbone toward the solar plexus. Then all that is necessary is to let the current of universal life energy flow through your hands into the body of your patient. It will pour into the spinal cord and from there be distributed by way of the nerve system to every part of the patient's body, where a particular need for it exists. That need will act as a vacuum which sucks it more strongly to the sick tissues until the healing is accomplished and the lost equilibrium re-established. The less you think about your patient during the treatment, the better universal life energy will work. Mental effort, either through thought, suggestion, or willpower, produces a tension which contracts the channels for conducting the force and thus hampers it in its work. Thorough relaxation is what is required, and the more you are able to achieve that through a placid, open realization of your oneness with the universal current, complemented by a calm and loving attitude toward your patient, the better results you will obtain. Remember, it is the universal power which does the healing and not you. You are only the medium, the conducting agent through which it finds expression. Therefore, put aside all personality and be as open as you can to the inflow of that power. The question may arise as to how long each treatment shall be continued. The general rule is to keep your hands on the shoulders of the patient until you feel that the current of life energy has stopped flowing through your fingertips. This indicates that the body of your patient is saturated with that power. Therefore, to continue would be a waste of time and energy. At this moment, gently remove your hands, for the treatment is completed. The length of the treatment varies in accordance with the nature of the case you are treating. If the need is great, it will take more time to fill it. However, from 5 to 15 minutes is a reasonable space of time for most treatments to last. In some cases it may be shorter, in some longer. It is a question of developing within yourself the faculty of sensing when to stop, and that is something you can learn only through experience. If there is some local trouble to which you wish to give special attention, you can follow the treatment described above with an additional one to complete it. Keeping your left hand on the left shoulder of the patient so that the thumb touches the seventh vertebra, place the right hand on that part of the body which you want to heal. If the affected area is very small, as in the case of eye or ear trouble, also wounds and burns, bunch the 5 fingers of your right hand together in order to concentrate into one ray the 5 streams of universal life energy flowing from your 5 fingertips, and then direct that ray on the sick part, but without necessarily touching it. Wounds and burns so treated heal with remarkable rapidity, usually without leaving a scar. These local treatments are very strong because of the combined action of the individual currents flowing through your fingers, and care should be used in giving them. These instructions concerning the use of universal life energy for healing purposes are of a general kind, as each case is an individual case. It is left to your own intelligence and resourcefulness to adapt the application of that power to special needs. Remember, the life force is like a current of electricity which you can direct through your fingertips in any direction you choose. By opening yourself to it more, you can increase its power. By closing yourself, you can diminish it at will. In treating yourself and others for so-called chronic troubles, you will notice that very often, after a decided improvement, there will be a sudden relapse and the condition will grow worse perhaps than it was in the beginning. Though unpleasant, this is an excellent sign. It shows that the deep-seated poison of the disease is being driven to the surface for elimination. Naturally, This results in an intensified expression of the trouble for the time being, until the inner venom's all forced out. But meantime the cure is taking place within. Such a process is called magnetic chemicalization. Continue to treat vigorously, and soon the condition will disappear entirely, never to occur again. Universal life energy can be applied not only in treating human beings, but also in treating animals and even plants. See Lesson 5, which, as they are closer to nature and less subject to fear, actually respond much quicker and better than human beings. In a consideration of the human body and its limitations, there is one other problem paramount in the interest of everybody, as it has been all through humanity's history. That is the question of old age. Why is life so short? Why do advancing years batter down this fleshy temple of our souls, defacing it with the scars of time, draining away beauty and youth and buoyancy and power, ruthlessly exposing it to every sort of disease and disappointment, and saddening with its solemn threat of death the twilight of our sojourn on this plane? From time immemorial it has been the dream of our immortal part to secure something strong and lasting for its expression. And this secret yearning has found voice in countless legends and stories of fountains of youth, elixirs of life, magic apples of health, and numberless other nostrums for restoring old and tired bodies to their earlier vigor. Although everyone seemed doomed to grow old, the hope irrationally persisted that sometime, somehow, someone would discover the secret of how to stop the disintegrating processes of old age and death. The indestructible soul within the perishable human body refused to accept the material fact of growing old and dying. The reason for this is that the cause of old age is not to be found in the soul, which knows no bounds of time, but in the mind, in our own consciousness. Through pride of mind, humanity deliberately separated itself from the infinite source of all life and limited itself to the small supply of life force in the physical body. From that moment, naturally, human beings were bereft of the only power great enough to withstand the disintegrating influences which are continually working for the destruction of the material body. If it were not for that mental separation of the individual from the eternal life principle, old age and death would never have been known on this earth. The immediate causes of old age are of two kinds: mental and physical. Fear, worry, disappointment, hatred, jealousy, and all other negative thoughts and emotions are the mental causes, while the essential physical cause is low vitality due to overwork, malnutrition, unsanitary conditions and habits of life, and all sorts of abuses. The inability of the individual to overcome these causes accounts for the victory of old age. That inability to conquer physical limitations is directly due to the interference of mind. When the individual is young, his physical growth is emphasized, while his mental development trails along in second place. It is the formative period, when all faculties are fresh and clean, wet clay for the molding of the future man or woman. Mind has not yet bulked big enough to thrust itself between the individual and that intimate contact with natural forces which is his birthright. Fear is a sinister stranger whose acquaintance is to be made gradually by experience. A somber sprite lurking in 1,000 different and unexpected guises along the road of development and leaving a raw wound to commemorate every encounter. As years bring youth into maturity, those encounters become more frequent, so that the accumulated scars harden and crust the mind with a dread consciousness of its limitations. Through that tough shell, life energy is no longer able to penetrate freely and nourish the centers within as abundantly as before, so those centers wither away or pulse feebly in accordance with the meager trickle they are able to secure. The individual becomes more and more restricted to the pool of reserve life force in his own body, and the demands of a ripening mental growth drain that reserve day by day, often stopping development prematurely. then lowering the vitality a bit at a time until wrinkles appear, firm flesh shags, cheeks cave in, teeth drop out, and all the melancholy insignia of old age emerge like dry rot through the walls of that sturdy structure erected by buoyant youth. The tragedy of this process is that at the very time when we most need all the power we can bring to bear in order to make every quality count to the utmost, at that time our mind is working most strenuously to cut us off from contact with the unlimited supply of all power. Not only that, but it is sucking dry the reserve of energy in our body in order to feed itself. It is depriving cells and tissues of the sustenance and power they must have to carry on successfully the ceaseless war against destructive outside influences, opening the back door to disintegration and death, as it were, while squandering the defensive forces on its own selfish concerns. It is the most subtle of traitors, for while it dazzles us with the brilliance of its performance, it robs us of our greatest treasure, the contact with universal life energy, so slyly that we seldom realize it. Mind reverses the course of nature so that whereas in youth the body lives on the individual, who supplies it with power from the universal source, in old age the individual literally preys upon his body and eats himself into his grave. The incursion of old age is definitely marked in accordance with natural laws. Like a light which is turned out, the glow of life sinks inward on its own center. The skin is the first to suffer as the luster and freshness of youth recede from it. Then tissues and muscles fail, and arteries become brittle and incapable of carrying the blood current as they should. The heart and other vital organs next lose their powers. Finally, the dimly glowing filament, which is the individual himself, fades into the darkness of death, and only the cold and empty shell of what he was remains. This is briefly the sad experience through which every human being seems compelled to go. Yet nature teaches us an entirely different story. Animals and birds, especially wild ones, do not lose their powers with advancing age. On the contrary, they grow bigger, stronger, and more beautiful almost to the end of their lives. Especially is this true of reptiles. Turtles and crocodiles are credited with a length of life extending over several centuries, as are also quite a number of larger species of fish and other sea animals. It is only when they have reached the so-called limit of their individual lives that they suddenly cease to develop, grow old very rapidly, and die without going through that human experience of losing one's qualities and forces gradually from middle life onward. In the vegetable kingdom, this process of continual growth and unfoldment is even more clearly exemplified. For instance, trees, such as the giant sequoia of California and the western United States, are often many thousands of years old, but they do not give an impression of age. The impulse is always to refer to them as big trees, because their size and strength are what strikes the eye, not their age. Yet through slow centuries they have been steadily gathering to themselves the power to achieve that growth, and in their present massiveness are proofs of an unfaltering progress in the face of every obstacle, over every danger, through all limitations to an ultimate and glorious success. Are human beings inferior to trees? Is their latent fund of infinitely richer qualities and more varied possibilities unable to accomplish for them what an insensate piece of wood can do for itself? If a tree, an alligator, an elephant can progressively overcome outside destructive influences almost until the end of their lives, can we not do as well? Certainly we can, once we understand how. Eliminate fear and you vanquish old age. Fear is the drug which not only paralyzes the expression of those positive qualities so vital for the preservation of youth, but it also contracts and numbs every nerve and cell and tissue. It is a blight which withers everything it touches, cutting the individual off more and more from his contact with that life-giving power in whose energizing current alone youth and strength are to be found. Change your ways of thinking and feeling from the negative to the positive, not by a tensing exertion of willpower, but through calm relaxation and a serene consciousness of your oneness with universal life energy. Abandon worry, which is one of the most powerful disintegrating factors in the whole catalogue of negative forces. If you start right causes to the best of your ability, right effects will eventually result. Worry will not alter those effects to come in the slightest, and will very decidedly hamper you in starting more right causes now. It puts you out of joint physically, mentally and spiritually, so that those three parts of your being are no longer able to work in a correlative and harmonious manner for the expression of their activities. Thoughts of hatred, jealousy and all kindred negative emotions are the implacable foes of beauty and youth. They are like a corrosive acid, which harms those at whom it is thrown, but harms those who throw it infinitely more. Nothing so quickly scorches away the bloom of youth, and no disfigurement is so repulsive as that which it produces when it has eaten through the containing walls of flesh around it. Love, the single antidote for every destructive thought and passion, not only heals the wounds inflicted by them, but opens the individual to the purging flow of that great power which alone can make him immune to them forevermore. All channels, physical, mental and spiritual, which have shrunk under the bitter lash of negative thoughts and emotions until they are tightly closed, relax again at the vivifying caress of love. If you want to be always young and strong, give the positive thoughts and emotions an opportunity to help you. Preserve a loving, optimistic and joyful attitude towards life, taking it neither too lightly nor too seriously. Thereby you will attain a poise impregnable to every destructive influence and will arrest the advance of age. Nature, working normally through you as through the rest of creation, will develop an ever finer instrument for your expression, so that you will become stronger and more harmonious in body, broader and nobler in mind, richer in spirit, until your evolution on this plane is completed and you are ready to go on. Old age can and eventually will be completely overcome by those who will conscientiously and persistently put into practical application in their daily lives these principles of nature. This lesson, explaining those principles, is designed for the express purpose of enabling you to solve that problem, and the exercises appended to it will help you to the right path by which to achieve that natural victory. Exercises. This week continue as usual morning and evening the star exercise, also relaxation, silence and the mental contact with universal life energy. Then, by means of the new exercise described below, direct the main current of that force to those centers within you which govern strength and youth. This exercise is called Rejuvenation and is performed as follows. During the silence, while contacting universal life energy, think of that power as rising upward from your solar plexus, through the spinal cord into your brain, flooding every portion of it, invigorating and stimulating every center, cell and gland. Think of it specifically as flowing to your eyes, your centers of hearing, etc. In turn, by mentally contacting a particular organ or part of your body, you open the nerve channels within you which control that part to the vivifying flow of universal life energy, so that the force is for the time being concentrated more strongly there. It is the entering wedge, in a way, that pries open the narrow mouth of the center which feeds an organ a little wider to the supply that seeks entrance. As the process starts from the center and proceeds outwards, a more or less logical sequence ought to be observed in directing the life current. Send it first to the inner vital organs, which are nearest to the source of that flow and therefore the first in its path. Think of it as filling the heart, spilling from there into the lungs, brimming over into the kidneys, spreading to the liver, stomach, limbs, feet, arms, hands, muscles, tissues, teeth, hair, and last of all, the skin. Feel it like a steady rush of wind blowing out through the pores of your skin, just as air exhaled from your lungs issues from the nostrils. And above all, remember not to use willpower, since the successful performance of this exercise, like all others based on universal life energy, depends primarily on relaxation. As the skin is the first to show the marks of old age, so it will be the last to lose them. Rejuvenation takes place first within, through the gradual elimination of outworn cells and tissues in favor of new and healthy ones. You will feel the change long before you will see it. As your inner organs are refreshed, you will notice a sense of buoyancy and strength stealing through you like a clear stream through stagnant waters. You will take more interest in life and in your surroundings, and will be alert and responsive where before you were indifferent. Eventually, every cell and fiber of your body, in muscles, bones, and nerves, will be replaced, and you will have been literally made over after a new, younger, and better pattern. The process reaches completion when your skin undergoes that alteration, the wrinkles melting away and the firm, harmonious contour of the features emerging to reflect accurately your changed attitude. Youth will glow again from beneath the gray ashes of years, and this time will abide with you as long as you consciously keep bright and warm the flame which before you permitted to grow dim because of lack of knowledge how to feed it. Questions and answers. 1. What is health? Health is the efficient outward manifestation through the body of harmonious inner activities. 2. How is it related to the progress of humanity? Health is related to the progress of humanity, in that, as humanity is the sum of the individuals comprising it, the vigor and progress of a race or nation as a whole depends directly on the vigor and progress of every one of its members. 3. What is the keystone of health? The keystone of health is a balanced development of all faculties. 4. To what specific bodily condition are most physical troubles due? The specific bodily condition to which most physical troubles are due is congestion, local or general. 5. How can those troubles be eliminated? These troubles can be eliminated by dispelling through the use of universal life energy the congestion which causes them. 6. Should willpower be used in that elimination? Willpower should not be used in that elimination, since willpower necessitates a tense effort which contracts the channels for contacting universal life energy. 7. What is magnetic chemicalization? Magnetic chemicalization is the expulsion to the surface of an inner unhealthy condition, resulting in an intensified expression of the trouble for the time being. 8. What is old age? Old age is the encroachment on the body tissues of inside and outside disintegrating influences. 9. What kinds of causes are responsible for old age? The kinds of causes for old age are 1. Mental, such as fear, worry, hatred, jealousy, and all other negative thoughts and emotions. 2. Physical, such as overwork, malnutrition, abuses, and unfavorable environment. 10. To what fundamental cause can all others be traced? The fundamental cause to which all others can be traced is fear. 11. To what part of our triune nature is old age restricted? Old age is restricted to the physical part of our triune nature. 12. How can old age be overcome? Old age can be overcome by consciously restoring the free contact with universal life energy and thereby developing a fresh, wholesome, and evenly balanced instrument for the expression of the qualities of the individual, particularly youth,